Hello and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to show you my PC build. This is 2022 and this is Christmas Day today. And this is kind of the Christmas present to myself. Amazon Vine Voice sent me this RAM for free. This is DDR5, 32GB. This is free. The rest of them I bought it with my own money. Now with PC build, I usually do it every 5 years or so, 5 to 7 years. If my kids need a computer, then I upgrade and I pass them all my old stuff. I know my channel is all about budget and value for money. The Ryzen 7000 series CPU is the state of the art, but it doesn't give you the bang of the buck. If you really want a fast PC and with a budget build, I would recommend go with the AMD 4 sockets and DDR4 memory. Purely because it's perfectly fine for running all the latest games title. If you spend that extra money on a faster graphics card, there is no reason to upgrade to the 7 series. So if you're like me, have a 5 to 7 year cycle to rebuild your PC, hold fire, because all this stuff will eventually be mainstream and will be a lot cheaper. But anyway, this is to show you what your money can buy. This is not scripted. I'm just going to go through my build here. I built my PC. I have a new case, new cooling system, new motherboard, everything new. The only thing I'm recycling from my previous computer is my M2 hard drive and the GeForce 3070 graphics card that I'm using right now. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to share, like, and subscribe to my channel if you find my information useful. Another reason why I make this video is because when I mention to people that I built my own PC, they go like, wow, really? You're so smart. And to be honest with you, it's like Lego. If you can follow instruction and put them together, it's not that hard. But when I explain it to my friends, like, oh, what is CPU, what is graphics card, power supply and all that, it just doesn't click. Maybe because they haven't seen it, how it works together. Maybe they were a bit puzzled. Sometimes they are pitfall. For example, you just can't go and buy a motherboard and expect your CPU will fit, because there's AMD, there's Intel, there's different type of CPU to match motherboards. So hopefully if you are interested in this kind of thing, watch my video. And for those who just want to watch the part of the video where it is relevant to you, feel free to skip forward and backward, and there should be a time code in my description in terms of what this video is about. Now, since I've been building PC for a long time, there's a couple of tips that I want to give you guys. First, no zip. Don't wear zip, don't wear belt. First, it might scratch the case or scratch the components. And secondly, I don't like any electrical stuff or short circuits and things like that. You shouldn't be powering up any part of the machine until the very end when everything is built. But at the same time, I just don't like metal in contact with metal or the paint of the case, etc. So this case here is the H7 FLOW from NZXT. This is a full-size case, so this is a huge, humongous case. But the reason why I choose this case is a couple of factors. One, it's within my budget, so it's not too expensive. And secondly, because my cooler. So my CPU cooler is one of those that have 3 fans on it, so it's a 360mm wide. So I need a big case because I have big cooling. Now with the Ryzen 7000 series CPU, they do run very hot out of the factory. Air cooling is fine if you are on a tight budget, because some of the air cooling is actually better than the all-in-one water coolers. But if you choose the right water cooler, you don't need such a high fan speed, which is very important for me because sometimes I do record right next to my computer. Modern computer and modern electronics, they should be quite well protected against statics. But if you do find that you get electrical shock every time you walk on the carpet and touch things, sometimes you might want to get one of those strips that protect your equipment from static. Ooh. Definitely static there. It comes with 2 fans pre-installed right here. They're not RGB. I didn't go for the full hook options. There is where you can save money when you build your own computer. If it is going to be hidden somewhere under the desk, there's no point getting RGB and stuff like that unless it already comes with it. If it is an option, I usually don't opt for the RGB because I would never see this machine underneath my desk anyway. So there are some latches on top right here, and then you lift this up, and then the glass remove. So there's no more thumb screw needed. It's tempered glass. So it should be strong and it's quite clear at the moment. I'm going to leave it on the side. So at the back of the case, this is where you can do all your cable management. For example, if you don't want the cable to show, they can all route behind the metal plate right here. So it's out of the way. Now, there is no hard fixed rule to say what you need to install first. But for me personally, it's the motherboard first, CPU second, and then the rest of the thing will fall into place. My tip number 3 for building your own computer is don't use screw guns. Okay, you can use those electric screwdriver which turn really slowly. What I mean screw gun is this stuff here. Definitely not impact, but something like that. You round off the screw, or you hit some other components which will cause damage. For the motherboard, I went for the ASRock. This is X670E Lightning. This is kind of a socket AM5 motherboard, which is the cheapest I can find with a PCI generation 5. So SATA cables, this is for connecting to your hard drive or optical drive if you still have those. A little bit of screw and instruction right here. Okay, this is what they call a motherboard. Now I usually leave it on the paper or the tray itself. If there is one thing that is easily damaged during installation, this is probably it. The CPU mount, make sure you watch some video or we watch this video to make sure you know how the CPU go onto there. You got hundreds of little pins underneath as connectors, and if any one of them bend, and that's it, you are done for. The RAM slot, you can actually put them in quite easily, and most of them are not symmetrical, so you can only fit them in one way. The only way you will damage anything is if it doesn't fit and you try to force fit it in. Another thing which easily done is that when you mount your motherboard onto your case, you need to use screwdriver, and the screw comes with it. And if your screwdriver slip, there is tiny circuit board and connector on here. There's kind of literally like in the millions of them on here. If your screwdriver slip and scratch any of those parts, again, that's it, you're done for. Now on the back of the motherboard, usually they're quite safe. Even if you scratch a little bit, they just kind of won't leave a mark. But you just have to be careful because if you put it on the wrong place where the screw kind of scratches the back, it can cause damage as well. With the motherboard in place, now we find the screw which we need, and then we can tighten them down onto your case. And now is the time that you want to make sure that all the screw that you took out from the back actually secured into the motherboard. You don't want any loose screw to be lying on the circuit board, because when you power it up, if there is a leftover screws on there, you get short circuit and will fry your motherboard easily. You don't need to do it ultra tight, because once inside the case, there shouldn't be much vibration anyway. And I wouldn't bother with any thread lock or anything like that. Just hand tight them. Make sure the motherboard is not going to run away from you. Now I am taking my sweet time right here because I'm filming myself as well. But usually I do it a lot faster. I probably can build a computer within an hour. AMD Ryzen 7, and this one is 7700. Top of the range CPU. I could have gone with the Ryzen 9, but I still need to watch my budget, so out of all consideration, this should be fast enough a CPU for most gaming and my light editing. But if you have the money, you might want to go with an even faster CPU. Look at this sexy beast. The amount of connector at the back, they are just tiny little dots of metal. It's going to match up with your motherboard with tiny bits of connector sticking up. And on top here, they got a kind of a offset of metal on top to disperse the heat. Now I have been told this particular type of CPU runs really hot. Hence my triple fan cooling solution for this. Motherboard, you got a little lever on this side here, lever, and if you power to a side, lift it up, then you have access to the actual CPU mount. Now, do not touch the inside of this mount because there is a risk of bending the pins, and you definitely don't want to do that. Okay, all the CPU should have a little arrow at the corner for you to align with your motherboard for orientation. The most likely way to find it is the corner here with a silver triangle, which should match your CPU, as well as the AMD logo should be reading in the right direction. Once the CPU is rested on the socket, take out the plastic cover from the top flap, push it back down, and then clamp it back down with the lever that you have. It does two things. One is stop the CPU from moving, and secondly, all the little metal dots of connector that you see just now is now being pressed firmly against the motherboard. And now this is ready for its heatsink and the radiator and the rest of it. Next thing for me to install is the DDR RAM. Now this one here, like I say, is sponsored by Amazon because they send it to me for free. And this is the 32GB. Now with RAM, this is DDR5, which is tell you what type of RAM it is. But within DDR5, you also got different speed. Now this one here is a 6200 megahertz. So this is kind of at the higher end of the market. I mean, sometimes you can get like 6000, 5000, like 800. In real world experience, they don't usually make that much different. You're talking about fine tuning. Go with the highest number that you can go. This one have RGB on top, connector on the bottom. You just slot them into the slot available. My motherboard has 4 slots. And I have 2 sticks of memory here, and you must read your manufacturer guideline to see where you should install them. Okay, don't just put in slot 1, slot 2 to get the maximum performance that this designed for. For example, this one say you should put it into A2, B2, which is the slot on the diagram, and make sure that when you put it on, check the notch is where it's supposed to be, because you don't want to install it the wrong way around. And the way to find out where it should go is if you match it. If you put it onto the slot, check where the slot is. At the moment, this is not in the right place, so flip it around and then put it in. Okay, just gently guide it in, and the 2 tabs on the side should lock together to keep the RAM in place. It does need a little bit of force downwards, but please don't go crazy and force it down and break your memory. Look at this fantastic RAM. And thank you, Amazon, for sending it to me. One thing about this technology that I like is the way the water flow within the radiator. So the water, cool water go in the middle, flow down the whole length of the radiator, and then return on the side and come out heat. And the back here is the metal block where take the heat away from the CPU, and on top here is where the heat is, and then the air blows through, take the heat away from your computer. The MSI cooler didn't come with any instructions. Now the basic stuff I can find out, for example, which way shall I put it? Shall I put it this way or that way? Either way, the cable, the pipe is long enough to reach your CPU, but I want the maximum amount of airflow, so I'm going to flip it this way, so the pipe coming to the front, and then it will reach my CPU like that. The CPU mount is where it gets slightly trickier. The AMD5 and the AMD just use a similar design. Basically, you need to slot this bracket. Now, the orientation of the fan is very important because you want the air to be pushing through the radiator. So now I have all the fan installed, and this is ready to go inside the case. So now the radiator is mounted, the fan is also mounted. So it's going to run my CPU nice and cool. The thing about these expensive cases is that all the edges are rolled up, and they are so nice, they won't cut your fingers or anything like that. Okay, apparently what you need is something like this right here. So you don't want to over tighten this, but what happened is there are springs in between the screw head and the bracket. So you will feel that after you tighten a few times, you can't go anymore. With the power supply, I have gone with the EVGA 1000 volt gold. Power supply, sometimes they have rating, which is like bronze and silver and gold. They are to do with the effectiveness or efficiency of your power supply. So this is 80 plus gold. It's kind of a standard for a certain standard for power supply. How much power depends on what you are doing with your system and what components you have. With the Ryzen 7000 series, they run about 200 volts or something like that. My system 850 should be more than enough. But in case I'm going to buy a new graphics card or overclock this machine, I opt for the 1000 volts. To save some money, sometimes they are not modular, and this one is fully modular. So, and in the front, you see all this connector. If you don't need them, you don't plug in the cable. This is what modular means. If you buy a cheaper version of this PSU, you will find that at least the motherboard one will have a chunk of wire coming out, plus all the other ones into one chunk. Not all power supply are made equal. Some of them use cheaper components and they can blow up anytime. They might rate it higher than they should. For example, you know, if it is a 500 volt one, they might cheat and say it's 1000. So always go with some kind of certified PSU if you can afford it. So this one slides in the compartment right here, and it comes out from the back. And now all you need to do is line up the holes of mounting. And the good thing about these premium cases is that it's so easy to align them together because they are all machined accurately. When I was younger, I go for the cheapest case that is possible. Now I can afford it. Now I understand some of the premium design that they have. For example, this dust tray slide in and out. And trust me, you will need to clean your machine from time to time. And this kind of design is just so much easier for you in the future. So these are the cables which your power supply will need to power your motherboard and everything else. And for the case itself, for example, some of the USB port, the audio ports and all that is from this branch of wire which is already installed on your PC case. You just need to connect them to your motherboard, which conveniently there is a hiding metal right here, and you just slip out any connection that you need, put it onto the motherboard so that it's not on show. The power supply at the back of the power supply, they are all labeled as well. So with the EVQA, there is like CPU 1, CPU 2, motherboard, SATA 1, 2, VGA, so that is for your graphics card. So that's the motherboard cable that goes into that slot right here. And the good thing about modular is that you only need to use what you need. There is absolutely no need to plug everything in, have all the wires hanging everywhere. Now, like I say at the beginning of the video, so don't worry about not knowing where to plug them in, because if you got it wrong, it just won't let you. They all have their own design. So unless you have the right edge, else they won't go in. So now is the time where you try to neatly pass all the cables through the concealed area. Yep, I heard a click. So like that. It's putting a bit of stress on the motherboard, which I don't like. And then I will need the CPU cable, which comes out on the top here. And I think I need 2 of the CPU cable. Again, I don't need the full length of the cable, I just need the connector. I like to make sure that, you know, the cable is not touching the fan, because now is the time that you can make sure they are connected properly without fouling any of your fans. Yep, high definition audio is right here. So this one is a blue connector, and it needs to go in. Oh, that's a tight fit. Okay, so when we talk about cable management, so this is the front of the case. This is what you see from the glass there. This one is unavoidable because this is a water pipe. The water come down, take away the heat, go back, disperse it onto the radiator and blow out the hot air. The pump is actually in the radiator rather than the front heads here. The wiring is already done at the motherboard level, so you can't see any cables right here so far. So this is kind of as neat a install as I can get it to be. On the top, radiator is attached right now, so you can put your dust protector and then the top back on, and that is done. This is how modern computer hide all the cables. So you got channels right here, so all these eventually I will kind of route them properly and press against the channels. SSD, now I have an M2 SSD card which I'm going to bring over in a minute. So they go to the back, and all my other drive is going to be mounted on the back right here neatly. And yeah, so this is how you keep your case nice and tidy. So hard drive is where you store all your compute data and where your program is being installed. Now I have a mixture of different hard drive right here. So these are the old style spinning disk, or you can call them mechanical hard drive. They are a lot cheaper for the large amount of data that they can store. So this one is 3 TB and this one is 4 TB. And I do a lot of video editing, that's why I need a big storage bank like those. I also have SSD drive, and these are your typical SSD drive, which is quite popular in the last like a few years. They're really fast and they're relatively cheap now. So, you know, I think this one is a 500 meg, maybe this one is 1 TB. So those are my main drive for a few software. But for my main system, I'm using an M2 SSD. So this one here is a generation 3, so it's not the quickest one available at the moment, but this is what I'm using right now, and I have everything installed onto this from my previous computer. I'm hoping that I can just put this into this system without having to reinstall everything, but eventually this will get replaced with a much faster M2 type of SSD solid hard drive for this particular PC. So that is going to go into the system. This case here, the H7 FLOW, the caddy for your hard drive is right here. You can fit 2, and once the CPU is in there, you can't get your screwdriver in there, which is like, you know, I wish I know earlier. You guys can learn from my mistake. Maybe mount the hard drive before you do anything else. So after you connected all the power to your SSDs and your hard drive, then you have to link up the data cables from all your hard drives. Okay, so finally I'm ready to install my graphics card. So this is a 3070 which goes in there. It takes up at least 2 or 3 slots. What I will do is I will take away the back plate, the first, second and third. It's because you don't want it to scrape the side or the top, because there are sensitive equipments in there. So this is the slot which goes into the first PCI slot right here. It can get a bit fiddly, but as long as you don't force it in the wrong way, again it should give you a little bit of a click to tell you that it's been installed. That actually went outside the case, that's why it's not going in. Make sure that looks like perfect. Oh, yep. And some of the card is so ridiculously heavy, you actually need to put something underneath to support it, or else the heatsink come apart and then it heats up. But for this one here, it should be fine. The nice things about having a big case is that you can have this display card like this orientation, or you can actually have it sideways. Some people like to have it on the side, I don't know why, but they like to do that. Okay, so now I need power for my graphics card. So again, I need to route it from the back to here, but this time I'm going to go underneath it. Let me see. So you don't see it. Connection, VGA connection. I need an 8 and an 8. So now the graphics card is plugged in. There's power onto the graphics card. Everything kind of installed properly. So now I can tidy up all the cables on the back, put all the panels back into place. And once I start the machine, then it should tell me if it is working or not. How exciting. The panel back, top panel goes like that. Oh, sexy. Okay, let's do some cable management. This is the part where you can be as neat as you want to, or you can just chuck everything like this and just close the case and forget about it and never see it again. This is as neat as I can be. Towards the front of the case, you can hardly see any wires now, so that is good. And at the back here, everything is out. At the back here, everything is out of the way. There's 2 or 3 reasons why we do this. One is obviously for the look. You don't want your expensive computer to look crap because of the wires hanging in the front. But also, you want to reduce the amount of pinching. For example, if you put your case on, you don't want the case to cut the wires. Expensive case like this shouldn't do anything because like they got round edges. But also when there is vibration, for example, when the fan is spinning or hard disk is spinning, you don't want the wire to hit the case and start rattling. And this is my 1080p spare monitor just for testing. Keyboard, mouse plugged in, and everything is triple tracked already. Power button. No spark or anything. Actually, no spark, which is good. This is a first glimpse of my computer build. So H7 case, water cooling. Now this build here, now is detecting HDMI, so it's booting up. It does say that the first time you install your computer, this DDR5 RAM, because they need to learn the setting, it can take up to like 300 seconds before it boot up. ASRock, I got the motherboard logo, woohoo! Okay, so far my computer is running perfectly fine. I put the glass back on now, so this is ready to move to my gaming setup. The fan is quite noisy, to be honest with you, because I'm stressing the CPU at the moment. The motherboard core temperature is showing at 81, but I have no idea what my CPU temperature is because I think the CPU is too new for my CPU Z and my CPU and my CPU ID. But once I go back to my gaming setup, then I can have a look. I haven't gone into BIOS to change anything. This is just default setting from the motherboard. And I have been running the bench test for the last 10 minutes right now. And the temperature showing here is 81 degrees. So all the testing so far, it was on default setting. And you can see that here, the RAM setting at the moment is 4800. Now mine is 6002. So definitely need some adjustment right there. I am keeping an eye on my temperature right here. In fact, running the game have a lower temperature than running the CPU stress. So here I'm running some stress tests right here. So I've got CPU Z. This is running at full speed at the moment for 5.2 gigahertz. Temperature is stable at 86. And the power of the CPU is actually 141 volt, but it has been running for a little bit now. Memory wise, it's running how I want it. So the RAM is good for 6002, and this is now running at double of 3088, which is about 6002. All right, so can you see here, compared to the i9, 13,900, so this is 24 core at 32 threads. Here obviously I'm losing by a big margin because mine is only an 8 core of Ryzen 7, but single core you can see that is not that much different. Now if I move down the list, so if I compare mine with a Ryzen 9 here, single core, there is not much different in terms of processing power, but again I'm losing out on the amount of cores. This is one of the reasons why I didn't go for the Ryzen 9 but go for the Ryzen 7, because of the single processor speed is not that much different, and to use the multi-thread like how it's showing here, I will be doing a lot of rendering and it's not really cost effective for me. So if I go down to find another 8 core CPU, or even the 10 core CPU, let's try the i9. And here is where you can see the difference. You're comparing with some lower rank CPU. So this is the 10,900 CPU, i9 at 10 core and 20 thread, and you can see that this processor is already quicker in both single and multi-thread. And if I choose a 8 core 16 thread, which is exactly the same core number to mine, and mine is a lot faster. And if I compare with a Ryzen 7 but a 3700, mine is a 7700. And here is where you can see the main difference. Tomorrow I'll be getting a 3090 Nevada graphics card. Once I have that, then it should be end of my upgrade. So thank you very much for watching. I can't wait to see you next time with more interesting gadget. Bye bye.